rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
I'm far more concerned about illegal aliens than I am space aliens. We're gonna talk about that and more. I wonder if this issue with UFOs is a distraction from bigger issues. Is it an admission that the United States Armed Forces aren't as ready as other nations? I want to talk about that. Also, the Biden plea deal that was absolutely rejected. We'll get into that. And Mitch McConnell's brain freeze, which was absolutely scary. All of that and more coming up on this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please stay tuned for some quick program messaging, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please subscribe wherever you go to get your podcast. Also, we're on YouTube and Rumble. If you subscribe there, please rate and review there. We would certainly appreciate it. It'll help us to move up the charts. And we definitely could use your help there. So we would appreciate that. All things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is where you can find us. Today's show is brought to you by MyPillow.com. So Mike Lindell, he's been operating this business for quite some time now. MyPillow is celebrating their 20-year anniversary. Over 80 million MyPillows have been sold. So he has a deal that's exclusive to my listeners. Right now, you can get a MyPillow queen-size pillow for just $19.98. $19.98. The regular price is $69.98. If you want a king size, that is $29.98. Also, you'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products, such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, the My Slippers. So much more when you go on to the website. So if there's anything you've considered getting in the past from MyPillow, now is the time to take advantage of some serious deep discounts. If you want to buy early for Christmas, maybe birthday presents, Father's Day, Mother's Day, you want to buy it early, buy now at MyPillow.com. All you have to do is use my promo code. Go to the radio podcast square at the top of the page and enter Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. All of the products come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Plus, you have the added benefit of knowing that you are actually helping to create and to keep American jobs, American manufacturing. All right. So, and help get a good night's rest as well. Why not? MyPillow.com, promo code Carl. All right. Now, let's get into some of the topics of the day, some of the things that happened yesterday. I got some videos that I want to run for you right away. So I hope you've subscribed to our Rumble or YouTube channel, because I want you to be able to check out these videos, because the first one that we're going to show is of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. And he had what I thought could have been a very dangerous episode where he literally froze up right in front of the cameras, right in front of the media when answering questions. It did not look good. He did come back later, apparently, and answered questions, and he appeared coherent and cogent. So you can understand the arguments for some people that are saying, like, listen, at a certain age, you need to stop being in politics. However, I do think that's a hard argument for me. And there's a couple of reasons. One is people age differently. And just some people aren't the same. And I don't like taking the vote away from voters. I understand the concept of term limits. I'm not a big fan of term limits. I want people to be able to vote for their congressman. I think it would be far more effective if their congressman did not live in Washington, D.C., or didn't have to spend so much time in Washington, D.C., but they actually had to spend more time around their constituents. If you're a congressman in a certain district in Florida where I live, or a senator, you shouldn't spend most of your time in Washington, D.C. You should spend almost all of your time in your state, in your district, getting to know your people, and your people, your voters, getting to see you, seeing you out, and so on, etc. So anyway, let's go ahead and roll this clip. Again, this is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. And based upon this guy just had a fall this year, if you guys might recall, where he was somewhere at a Washington, D.C. Restaurant, and apparently smacked himself pretty good. He was hospitalized for quite a while, suffered a concussion, I think it's time for Mitch McConnell to resign. And everybody knows, if you listen to this podcast, I'm not a big fan of Mitch McConnell, but I'm not saying it for that reason. I'm saying it because once you see this video, I think it's clear it's time for this guy to resign. Gabe, let's go ahead and roll the tape, por favor.
We're on a path to finishing the NDA this week. It's been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Are you good, Mitch?
Okay, Mitch. Anything else you want to say, or should I just go back to you? Do you want to say anything else to the press? Go back.
Go ahead, John.
I'll take it. Let's go back to you.
Go ahead, John.
Could you address what happened at the start of the press conference, and was it related to your injury from earlier this year where you suffered a concussion? Is that you fine? You're fully able to do your job?
Yeah. Okay. No, he's not. He needs to resign. I'm sorry. You don't go in front of the cameras. I don't know what type of episode that was, but that was pretty scary, right, Gabe? I mean, that looked to me, there's no doubt that obviously he's in the Senate chamber. And also, it was that Senator Barrasso from Wyoming. I don't know if he's a senator or a congressman. Forgive me, I forget. But he used to be a physician, so I'm sure there were people on hand to check out Mitch real quick. But I'm sorry, this guy needs to go. Politically, I'm not a big fan. I do love the fact that he fought for the Supreme Court justices. I view that a little differently than Republicans. I'm sick of us just taking scraps like, oh my God, praising politicians because they do what they're supposed to do. So I look at the job that Mitch McConnell did, and he did stay strong during the Obama era. So I do have to give him credit for that because he did have a spine of steel. And I must admit, I'm very thankful that he did not elevate Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. So I do give him props for that. But helping to get the other three and stuff nominated, listen, I feel like that's part of their job. So that's something that Republicans should be doing. It's sad that as Republican voters, as conservative voters, we're like, yeah, they actually did their job. But that's where we are. But having said that, listen, I don't want no ill will towards Mitch McConnell, but I'm sorry. It's time to go. Some people just age differently. Obviously, he's had a couple of falls, and now we're starting to see the ramifications of that. I didn't know if the guy was having a stroke, for God's sakes, sitting there, but apparently he's okay, and he will be okay for the time being. But when you get to that point, it's time to leave. I'm sorry. You're talking about the National Defense Authorization Act, and you just freeze up in front of the cameras like that. That was very scary, in my opinion. It is time to go bye-bye. Just a couple of things in the news. Speaker McCarthy, again, is warming up to impeachment inquiry. So these are the things that are still lingering out there. Actually, that's some of yesterday's news. So this is, but still some of the same stuff that's lingering out there. The Fed is raising the interest rate a quarter basis point. Biden welcomes the Italian prime minister to the White House. That should be interesting because she's a little spitfire, more of a conservative type spitfire. Biden DOJ is in a hot seat after Hunter's sweetheart deal blows up in court. We'll get to that in just a second. There's been 4 illuminating points by Saul Weissenberg, I believe is his name. He's an attorney. I believe he's a white collar criminal defense attorney, if I'm not mistaken, that he often appears on the Laura Ingraham program on Fox News, a really good, solid attorney. Just the News basically shared a link to his Twitter feed yesterday after the plea deal blew up. I'm going to talk to you about that and why it likely blew up and why it's extremely suspicious and why I don't think conservatives should be clapping hoorah as of yet. Something is not right about that. You saw the medical condition. occur with Mitch McConnell. If you listened or if you watched our podcast, I'm sorry, I'm sitting here trying to find, actually, this is where I want to go. And this is where I would like to go. All right, now let's do this before we get into the Hunter thing. Now I want to share this other video with you. This is of the testimony of some Air Force, I believe they're Air Force pilots. There's a few pilots, forgive me, but they're testifying. Former U.S. Navy fighter pilot Ryan Graves, retired U.S. Navy Commander David Fravor, and former Air Force intelligence officer David Grush were on Capitol Hill testifying about UFOs yesterday. And again, guys, let me just say this. I don't know what's going on with UFOs. Perhaps I'm the wrong person to listen to on this. I don't care. I am so much more concerned about illegal aliens than I am space aliens. Illegal aliens invading our country as opposed to space aliens and invading from outer space. If indeed that's true, I don't know that it's true. I don't know that, and I'm not knocking these gentlemen at all. We'll get into some of the audio and video here. I'm not knocking these gentlemen at all. I don't doubt that they've seen something. I personally don't believe in UFOs, but I've not been in the sky like that. How do we know that it's not something different? How do we know that it's not something heavenly, for God's sakes? I mean, if it could be UFOs, why can't it be an angel? How do we know that with all of the time that we spend and all the money that we spend invested in Iraq and Afghanistan, how do we know that China, Russia, and some of these places don't have far more advanced war weaponry than we do, that they've tested out and people are seeing and they're freaking out over? Now, there is apparently, these gentlemen testify that they know of non-human pilots, I guess, that supposedly our government has found along with the aircraft, if you will, or the UFOs. Well, then show people. I'm sorry, people aren't going to panic. I don't believe that. I don't believe that Americans are going to freak out and panic. I think you'll show them aliens if they are indeed real, and then within 24 hours, something will hit them on their phone, and they'll forget all about it, and they'll get on with life. But if we have nothing to worry about, and if we've known about them for so long, it seems like we have no reason to panic because they haven't invaded, apparently, our airspace. And I want to know if other countries, if it doesn't it make sense? Do other countries have specimens available to show? Is it just the United States? Like, a lot of this stuff just simply doesn't add up to me. So I wonder, is it a distraction from the Biden family corruption? I wonder if it's an indictment on our own U.S. military, where we have not been keeping up with research and development and spending money elsewhere besides building up our own military arsenal and becoming better at weapons technology. I simply don't know. But right now at this point, I just don't know that I care. It's like, show me something. I'll pretend like I'm from Missouri right now. Show me, from the show me state. You got to show me something. I'm tired of hearing of UFOs if they're true. And again, I don't doubt what these guys are saying. I don't doubt that they've seen something. But what? I don't know. And I'm not sure that they know. And then I'm not sure how it will impact us. If these people start to attack us, if they really know this information, if this information is true and the military knows it, then I think they have an obligation to build up our arsenal where it can handle that. If that's possible. If not, I don't know. But here's the video and audio. So check it out. If you're watching the podcast on YouTube and Rumble, you can check it out. And please subscribe to our YouTube and Rumble page. The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find us. Let's roll it, por favor, Gabe.
You have also said some of these answers in the past, but we're trying to get them on the public record as well, which is really important. Mr. Grush, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
Thank you. And sometimes I know that you have also said some of these answers in the past, but we're trying to get them on the public record as well, which is really important. Mr. Gresh, finally, do you believe that our government?
Okay. All right. That's fine. All right. So we'll leave it there. I mean, these guys, I don't believe these guys are lying. I believe they're absolutely credible. But I just, at this point, I think you got to show me. I don't buy the argument that Americans will freak out. I mean, people have been wanting this information for so long, the people that are sincerely into it, that I think Americans deserve to know. And if we're under threat, who knows? If we are under threat, maybe this would be one of the things that would actually unite Americans, because Americans like uniting, against a common enemy, right? We saw that with 9/11, World War I, World War II. Americans like uniting against a common enemy. So if anything, maybe it's one of those moments like that Will Smith movie, what was it, Independence Day, where people will be like, yes, America, So if anything, UFOs will unite us. But right now, I'm just not sold. Maybe they're an angel. Maybe it's a distraction. Maybe it's another country that has advanced weaponry. And we should be like, oh, crap, China is far more advanced than we thought. I simply do not know. Anyway, now, here's a story that I want to get onto. Obviously, the big news story of yesterday was Hunter Biden's plea deal that was rejected. Crackhead was denied. Maybe I should stop saying crackhead. Does that sound too mean? I didn't. It's weird because I go back and forth with Hunter Biden, how I feel about Hunter Biden. But now that you know that he's just as much of a jerk as his dad, it's hard not to call him crackhead. The problem is, the issue that I struggle with is I believe that he is a product of his dad, meaning I don't believe that Hunter Biden would be the man that he is today were it not for Joe Biden being the father that he was to Hunter Biden. How do you send your son into enemy territory with foreign adversaries in order to bribe, coerce them to enrich yourself? That is totally disgusting. That is just absolutely evil. For Joe Biden to do that to his son. There's no way that you can convince me that a crackhead would have access to the people in high government, different parts of the world, were it not for his dad, Joe Biden. And I think we all know that. We all know that. So it's a sad state of affairs. This is where we're at. This is the White House. Cringe Jean-Pierre. I don't know if I just made that up. I think it sounds pretty good. The podium propagandist responding to or reacting to the impeachment inquiry push and the Hunter plea. So here she is, the White House podium propagandist, Cringe Jean-Pierre.
And they support him as he continues to rebuild his life.
That private citizen, as she describes Hunter Biden, was escorted to court this morning in a multi-car Secret Service motorcade, presumably funded by taxpayers. So it's frustrating to reporters here that we can't get answers for the taxpayers about the Secret Service protectee we're asking about, or about any potential links to the president. The prosecutor said in court Hunter Biden's being investigated for matters other than tax evasion and unlawful gun possession, revealing that the government could potentially bring a charge under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And given that this other universe of material could potentially implicate President Biden, we wanted to ask if the White House would support a special counsel to oversee this, to ensure the independence of the Department of Justice and AG Merrick Garland, who reports to President Biden. But Karine skipped over Fox in today's briefing. We were not called on. She did call on, however, another reporter who tried to get clarity about the shifting answers around Biden's prior claims that he's never spoken to his son about his overseas business dealings.
Earlier this week, you said the president was never in business with his son, but can you say specifically that the president did not have discussions of any kind with Hunter about his business dealings?
I was asked this question multiple times on Monday. Nothing has changed. I don't have anything to add to what I stated on Monday.
She says nothing has changed, but the language has changed. It's the difference between no knowledge and no involvement. And that question, like so many others, Martha, remains unanswered.
All right, no knowledge versus no involvement. I don't have anything to do with my son's business dealings. And that obviously has changed, right? The narrative has changed, and you see other news organizations that are starting to ask the question. And I do believe it's simply because the left is panicking. Like, oh crap, what do we do? What else do we need to know? How long are we going to have to cover for this guy? The guy is obviously brain dead. I mean, I shouldn't say there's no doubt in my mind that there's times where Joe Biden is lucid and he's Joe Biden. But there's obviously times, or most of the times, where I believe that he's not. And basically you have an administration that's running the show with his dictates, if you will. And so we're in a very precarious position, but this whole Hunter Biden deal is absolutely scandalous. And we know the deal isn't Hunter Biden. The deal is Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the big guy. There's evidence now that Zelensky has enough dirt on Joe Biden and perhaps is leveraging the administration for everything that we've been giving them. And wouldn't that make sense? I mean, it seems like we're sending money weekly to Ukraine. Now, I don't want the Ukrainian people to suffer, but I don't want to be beholden to Zelensky, especially if it's true, even if it's not. I don't want to be beholden to Zelensky. But if we are running out of our own military arsenal, like what the heck are we doing? Why isn't Europe? Why aren't they funding the bulk of this proxy war against Russia? Why is it that they don't seem as concerned as we are? It makes no sense, except that Joe Biden is compromised. It makes no sense. All right, now let's get on to the issue of Hunter Biden and the plea deal that was rejected. There's some thoughts from Saul Weisenberg. Saul Weisenberg is an excellent attorney, very measured, very matter of fact, very knowledgeable. You'll see him on Laura Ingram's show frequently when it comes to different stuff like this. All right. He's a very high class attorney, a very good attorney. And then also I want to share with you something that I heard Andrew McCarthy say, who used to be a federal prosecutor at the Southern District of New York, that brought down Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I'm not so sure that Republicans should be shouting hooray as of yet, based upon what I heard. But also, I want to give you the skinny of what Saul Weisenberg had to say in regards to the Hunter Biden plea deal and why it fell apart and why it leads him to believe that it was more corruption than incompetence that led to the plea deal falling apart. So this was a link from Just the News. They had their own points, but they linked directly to him. So I'm going to share his points, given the fact that he's a lawyer that's probably dealt with similar type issues. So this is what he says on his Twitter account at Weisenberg Saul, S-O-L. This just in, the judge won't accept the proposed plea deal, at least for now, he says. All right, alluding to there will probably be a plea deal that she does accept. All right. So for those of us that were thinking, all right, this thing is just going to go to trial, perhaps, but doubtful. Sounds like he believes that there is going to be a plea deal eventually. He says some thoughts. Now we know why DOJ didn't show us the plea agreement terms. All right. What didn't they want us to know ahead of time? He asked. A global immunity deal for Hunter. All right. And he gets into that. A binding plea. And he says that is the judge must accept the specific terms if she accepts the agreement. C, a misdemeanor, probation. D, other unusual plea terms. Unusual plea terms, he says. Now, he breaks them down. 1, a global immunity deal for Hunter while the overall investigation is ongoing is stunning. He says, and I'm quoting here, a super sweetheart deal. Not just a sweetheart deal, but a super sweetheart deal, meaning Hunter Biden was taken to what he was going to plead guilty to were misdemeanor tax evasion charges and a gun charge that typically carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. So he was just going to go through a diversionary program. And as long as he stayed clean, he would have been he would have been absolutely fine. But he wasn't subjected to the same level of punishment that other people would have obviously gotten were his name not Hunter Biden, were he not the son of the president of the United States. Number two, he talks about a binding plea is extremely unusual in the vast majority of federal jurisdictions. It means, for example, he says, that if the agreement calls for probation, the judge must give Hunter probation. It is binding. So you consider this. The fact that we have this FD 1023 form that Chuck Grassley exposed last week, where a confidential human source, basically an undercover for the FBI, I believe, and the whistleblower reports, IRS whistleblower reports that we had last week. There is plenty of evidence that is mounting up that Joe Biden was, in fact, the big guy, that Joe Biden was, in fact, compromised, and he was using his son to enrich his entire family. We have this confidential human source that says that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden basically split $10 million each from the CEO of Burisma, because Joe Biden, that we played the other day on this podcast, called off the prosecution against Burisma. He fired the prosecuting attorney going after the corruption in Burisma. That attorney was General Viktor Shokin of Ukraine. Biden had him fired. He released the pressure that Burisma, the energy company in Ukraine, was undergoing, and he coerced the CEO of Burisma and an executive to pay off he and his son. So all of that ongoing investigation, what his attorneys were trying to do was to say all of that stuff is included. Meaning, that's it. His tax evasion, his gun charges, and everything forthcoming or upcoming that we haven't even found out about yet, as more evidence surfaces that the Biden crime family is corrupt as hell. All of that stuff would have been included in this plea deal, and so he would have been able to walk away. Now, I've got bad news. He may still be able to walk away. I don't think he's going to serve any time. But politically speaking, this, in my opinion, forces the mainstream media to no longer be able to ignore what's happening with the Biden crime family. The third thing that Saul Weissenberg talks about, and again, he is a highfalutin, if you will, a white-collar criminal attorney, federal court, all that kind of stuff. He's often a guest on the Laura Ingraham program. And the third things he mentions, and why the judge won't accept the proposed plea deal, at least for now, implying that eventually she probably will accept a plea deal of some sort, that the prosecution and defense would disagree about the terms of the agreement in open court is a joke. All right, guys, this is where I have expertise. All right. So I've gone to court, had a plea deal. All of this stuff is worked out. All of this stuff is worked out before you go into court. All right. All of it is worked out before you go into court. So this is something that doesn't just happen, that they figure out at the time. That's not how it works. That's not what they do. All right. So the fact that they were trying to figure things out as they go lets you know that the defense and the DOJ were corrupt. All right. That's insane. He said there should be no room for disagreement on the key terms of the agreement. So this was either astounding incompetence or corruption on the DOJ's part. He says, I think it is corruption. This looks like a wink and a nod deal, all right, where DOJ would have plausible deniability if the judge asked no questions and accepted the deal. The scope of immunity is the most important feature of a plea deal. It is inconceivable that the prosecutors, the DOJ, David Weiss in Baltimore, the U.S. attorney in Baltimore, were incompetent here. Leo Weiss, he says, or Wise, has an excellent reputation for competence. So it leads him to believe that it's straight up corruption. The prosecution and the defense working together to give Hunter Biden a super sweetheart deal and just play dumb and hope that the judge plays dumb, or the judge just doesn't see it, signs off, and then Hunter Biden is free to go. The Republican Party and the media can no longer talk about his case, so to speak, because case closed, everything is behind him. Well, that isn't the case anymore. That isn't the case anymore. Frankly, I just think the Trump administration, or Trump, scored hugely yesterday with this news. All right. I think it plays a part in the politics. There's no doubt about it. The fourth thing that and final thing that Saul Weissenberg mentions on his Twitter account, that's at Weissenberg Saul, is he says, think about this. The DOJ was about to sanction a plea deal where Hunter would get misdemeanor probation on serious tax charges, plus pretrial diversion, no time served, or criminal record on the felony gun charge. So no criminal record, meaning he could have gone out and gotten a gun right after this. And he goes on to say, Saul Weissenberg does, and he would not have to cooperate with the government's ongoing investigation. So that FD 1023 stuff, all of the stuff that leads back to the big guy in the White House, Hunter Biden, if that plea deal would have went through yesterday, if he would have pled guilty to all these charges, if the judge would have accepted it, he wouldn't have to cooperate with the government's investigation at all. Now he does. I'm telling you, Democrats are panicking. They are panicking. Biden, I don't think that Hunter Biden, although he should and although he could, obviously Joe Biden can't go to jail being a president, nor should he. We're not a third world country, as much as the left is trying to do that by throwing Trump in jail. All right, but we're not a third world country, so I don't want to see Biden go to jail. When he was senator or VP, he should have gone to jail. Unfortunately, we're past that stage. But he says this is totally disgraceful. Merrick Garland and David Weiss should be ashamed. And where's Lisa Monaco? Why hasn't she been called to testify? Apparently, I think she had something to do with the Russia collusion hoax as well, going after Donald Trump in this. But this is a sad day for the court system. Thank God the judge denied the plea deal. Eventually, there will be a plea deal, but hopefully, and I'm sure it will not include the ongoing investigation into the Biden crime family. So just a small bit of justice that we saw, that we saw yesterday. And this was Andrew McCarthy of National Review, the prosecutor for the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. This was basically his view as well. Hunter Biden won't see any jail time. One thing that he was concerned about that should bring all of us pause, I hope this doesn't occur, that he thinks this was corrupt, but also somewhat of a setup so that Hunter Biden and his attorneys could continue running out the clock. So that could be an issue as well, where Hunter Biden and his attorneys are trying to run out the clock, even on the gun charge, if there were to be an issue. So he says that that's still a possibility. They're just trying to run out the clock on everything so that Hunter Biden can't be prosecuted for anything. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. I think this is politically damaging to the Biden administration. This is politically damaging to the left, even if it's not criminally damaging as much as we would like for the Biden crime family. But it's yet to be seen. I do think the media will have no choice but to start talking about the Biden corruption, because obviously this story isn't going away. It's going to be able to stay in the news, and this is not what they were hoping for yesterday. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Again, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble is where you can find us. All things social media at the Carl Jackson Show. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Getter, True Social. Don't forget to take advantage of those deals, great deals, deep discounts at mypillow.com. Go to the top of the page and click on the radio podcast square and enter my name, Carl, or give them a call at 800-858-0263 and take advantage of those deals now while Mike Lindell has them going on at MyPillow. And guys, until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.